Welcome to Athens City Council. This evening we will be meeting in council committees. The meeting will be called to order by the City Council President, who will then pass discussion over to a respective committee. The chair of the committee will introduce the discussion topics and provide an overview of the issues at hand. If needed, members of the administration will offer brief statements to provide further context. We will then welcome input from the community. Any citizens who wish to speak will be asked to state their name and address, both verbally and on the sign and sheet located at the podium. Individuals will be given one opportunity to share their thoughts, and the committee chair will have the authority to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Once all citizens have had the opportunity to speak within the 15-minute time period allotted for total public participation on each topic, the public comment portion will be closed. Council committee members will then continue their deliberations. There may be additional questions directed to the administration during this time. When the discussion on the topic concludes, the chair will indicate whether legislation will be introduced at the next regular session of council and move on to the next item on the agenda or adjourn the committee if their work is complete. The next committee chair will then call their committee to order, proceeding in the same manner as before. Once all committees have adjourned, City Council will conclude for the evening.
Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. Today is Monday, February 23rd, and my name is Micah McCary. I'm serving as president, and tonight we are in committees. Before we officially begin, I have an announcement to make. Council members received an invitation from the Athens City Schools superintendent to attend a coffee with the superintendent and treasurer at Morrison Gordon Elementary School this Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. To discuss the issues of recent property tax reform legislation and how that might impact the district's finances. I would like to clarify that this is a meeting that the council and mayor have been invited to, but this is not an official council meeting, not a public meeting where council members will be acting as a panel or as special presenters. And with that, I will turn us over to the official business of this evening's meeting, beginning with a special presentation from the Pedestrian Accessibility and Bicycle Task Force for their annual report seen by the Committee of the Whole. So with that, I would like to thank this important task force for their time and allow them to begin their 15-minute presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for having us here tonight. I'm Rob Delich, a member of the Pedestrian Accessibility and Bicycle Task Force for City Council. Serves its position underneath the Transportation Committee, Beth's committee of City Council. And also welcome, thanks for the administration for being here tonight. And I hope you do get something out of this presentation. And again, it's nice to see the City Council cares enough about this issue to have us come here and talk to you. Thanks for taking the time. Your time is valuable, we know. So, with me today is going to be our student representative, a student representative from the committee, Libby Bulanda. So I'll introduce her at the moment when we switch. We're going to switch out here in a bit. But I'm going to start things off. So the Pedestrian Accessibility and Bicycle Task Force mission statement is about promoting walking and biking as part of a transportation system and providing leadership and expertise to City Council and city staff. So basically an advisory role is the key here. We don't have any official duties like some of the commissions do where they vote on official things like the Board of Zoning Appeals, for example, or the Planning Commission. We don't do those kind of things. We're advising, and so we're here to advise you and advise the administration. So our work does align, though, with broad city goals around improving public safety, transportation choice, sustainability, and quality of life. So the task force was created in August of 2023 by resolution of City Council, and we had our first meeting in October 2023. all our positions are appointed by the president of council. And so that initially is what happened with the initial members. Then we added some members, and then those eventually were confirmed by the president of city council, Sam Crowell, just last fall. That's the current process, and our bylaw has been updated to reflect that. So we recommend potential new members, and then the president of council is the one that decides if that's the person that should be appointed, and then makes an announcement here. We do have one vacancy, and so that's a student representative has graduated, and so we are going to be selecting someone, recommending someone soon to that position, which very likely could be Libby, who will be speaking here shortly. So the slide mentions a few guiding documents. I'm not going to get into details there, but these are the kind of things that the city uses to guide them in transportation decisions for the city. And we're also, of course, leveraging these. And some of us have been involved with developing some of these, like the Athens Pedestrian Accessibility Plan in 2023 was developed by the ad hoc committee. Several of the members from that group are involved with this task force as well. And that document is very detailed and it has a lot of information to glean, and the city administration has been using it to help them prioritize some of the work they've been doing too. So I have a section here about state of the city when it comes to transportation and multimodal transportation, right? So not like a mayoral speech here, but the city has done a lot of work this past year in 2025, to improve the pedestrian and essentially the pedestrian and accessibility of our city. The curb ramp project, which is just phase one potentially of that, was federally funded. There were 150 new or replaced curb ramps in the city, which is a huge number. 195 new tactile grids. So they also retrofitted some curb ramps that weren't accessible or ADA compliant because they didn't have tactile grids, and added those to them. Also added 7 new high visibility marked crosswalks and replaced almost a mile of sidewalk in the city. That's a lot of work that got done this past year. There's still some details. There's more crosswalks, I think, to mark that didn't get done at the end of the year because the weather turned rather quickly. But a lot of good work got done. Another project, the Stimson Bridge project, added a shared use path, and it's already open to use, which is just fantastic. I think the administration's already been hearing good feedback about that too, with people that are using it and thanking the administration for making that available. It's really made a difference in their commutes into the city as pedestrians and bicyclists. And it added 770 feet of shared use paths, so bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, both, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. The other thing that the committee and the city worked together on was there was a curb ramp extension across from Village Bakery. I was just in a meeting with the Little Fish staff today, so that's what anyway. So across from the Village Bakery at Watt Street, there's a rapid flashing beacon that you can hit the button and it turns on, but there was still issues with people not seeing cars yielding when they were in the street and such. And so the previous city engineer built a curb extension there to try and help improve visibility and make it so that maybe the yield rates would increase. And this task force saw an opportunity to put in a street mural. And so we worked with the city provided the micro grant to fund it, and we went out and worked on that. And many of you probably seen the results of the salmon on the street there across from the Village Bakery. So one metric I'd like to talk about is next on the slide this is a brief version of it, and I want to read a little more here, is the U.S. Census data over the last 10 years or more has been very consistent in showing that about 30% of Athens workers walk to work. And that's workers, not students we're talking about. It might be students going to work, but it's not students going to school. So that's a walk commuter rate. It's the third highest in the country, behind Ithaca and College Park. Yeah, College Station, Penn State, essentially, in Pennsylvania, whatever town that is. So that's huge. But if you also try and figure in the students, both OU students and school students going to middle school and East Elementary walk into school too, as well as other people doing other trips walking. Plenty of people, especially from my neighborhood, walk to the Village Bakery, walk to the grocery store, et cetera. And that happens all over the city. So the real walking share, if you sort of try and adjust for that based on some other data, comes to about 50% of daily trips. So in other words, Athens functions as a majority walking city. Almost no place in the country can say that. Even New York City is 15% of people walk daily or something like that, daily trips. 15% of daily trips are people walking. So that's huge. So we have a lot of people here that are walking, and it's not just the students, clearly. So this means that pedestrian safety is not a niche concern here. It's a fundamental to how our city operates. If walking is not safe and comfortable, we are not fully meeting the needs of our community. So there's another list here right below that are some concerns, some things we're a little concerned about in the past year. So there was a lot of great stuff that happened, but there were also a few things that we have concerns about. I'll go into more detail about these towards the end of the presentation. So we'll get back to those items. So I want to introduce Libby now. So Libby is a student at Ohio University. She's a junior in environmental studies, and she really did a lot of work helping me put this presentation together. So feel free to come on up, Libby, here and take over.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the big projects we've had from this past year in 2025. So as mentioned earlier, there was a beautification project at the curb extension on East State Street. So we commissioned a sort of public contest for a local artist to do a mural at the curb extension. And something important to note is that for the poll for the artist, over 1,000 people responded. So we got pretty good response rate. And ultimately, a piece called The Migration was selected. So we've got, a nice mural of some salmon out there on East State Street. And there was a ribbon cutting ceremony with like 35, 40 people who showed up. So it was a very nice event. Another big thing from this year was the bicycle parking ordinance that is still kind of in progress, something we're working on. But bike parking right now in Athens is not super adequate, and there aren't a lot of existing guidelines on what good bike parking looks like. And so the task force has been working on developing some guidelines on what our bike parking should look like and how it can be the most effective, and also limits on things like how long you can store your bike and things like that. So working with the city planner, the code office, the police chief, things like that to develop an ordinance. So we've been working on that, and we continue to work on that in 2026. So another thing is Athens Public Transit did a bus stop audit using the SPACE concept, which is safety, proximity, accessibility, connection, and ease. So we do analyze how, the quality of our curtain bus stops. 77 stops we audited, and about 64% of those had a sidewalk connection. And something else to note is that ridership has actually been up in 2025 over 2024, about 10%. So that's some pretty good news. Another big thing from this year is we formed a new subcommittee, intersections and crossing subcommittee, to sort of analyze safety at intersections around the city, especially intersections that residents have sort of brought up concerns about feeling unsafe in these places. So we started an audit of the West Washington, Schaefer, and Bayard intersection, because that one has definitely been of concern for some residents. And so we're working on proposing some potential safety improvements at that intersection just to make pedestrians feel a little bit safer. And then there are some other intersections that we plan to work on. Stimson, Carpenter, East State Street, West State and South Congress, Carpenter and North Congress, and East State and Eden are some of the ones we're looking at right now. And then some other things related to sort of our data. We've been doing continuous updates of OpenStreetMap data about Athens, like city-owned bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and keeping that up to date on what we have. And that's particularly helpful because annually the People for Bikes organization does a rating of the traffic stress for cities around the country for pedestrians and bicyclists. And so that OpenStreetMap data helps keep our rating accurate. And then there was also some work on data of crashes with bike and pedestrians in Athens. The task force did some data compiling that crash data through 2024 to make sure that data was accurate. We included the graph here through 2024 to show you sort of some of those trends. But as you can see, around 2020, 2021, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was definitely a decrease in bike and pedestrian crashes. But it has rose again in the city of Athens back up to sort of pre-pandemic levels. And so, the concern is, well, how can we get those crashes down? And, where are the safety concerns that we need to look at? And then we did some work to develop some new metrics as well, which I'm going to hand over to Rob so he can talk more about that. But
All right. Thanks. So you all had hard copies of the report I put on your desk. I hope that helps. I don't usually like to use paper for things, but I figured it might be good for you to have a hard copy you can look at. I did send around the electronic copy, and we'll be sending it out publicly too shortly, but I haven't made a public distribution yet. And it'll go up on the web page for download. The task force has a web page on the city's website. So I'm just going to focus on 10 of the metrics. If you look at that report, the first 5 pages is basically the main part of the report, and these 10 metrics are in that section. They're in a little different order than you'll see in this presentation, but they're all there. There's an appendix that's 9 pages long that is more metrics. So I'm a data geek, right? And I think it's a little excessive probably, but there's a lot of information. They're from many different sources. Some of those are for complete streets. There were metrics developed for complete streets, and so this is keeping track of what those metrics are for complete streets. And Sustainability Committee has some metrics that are relevant, and I've included those and try and keep track of year to year for those as well, which also helps them. But let's focus on the 10 key metrics here for now. You can dig into that data if you want to, and if you have questions about it, feel free to ping me or ask me about it. So for the key metrics, the first couple on this list on the slide here are new pedestrian infrastructure improvements. So literally where there wasn't something before, now there's a pedestrian infrastructure improvement in place. And the one example we have of that this year is the Stimson Bridge. So, and it's going to count a couple times here. You'll notice that coming back a couple times. It counts in a couple of categories because it's not just pedestrian infrastructure, it's also bicycle infrastructure. So that's a great improvement, and it's good to see that. And so we're using green and red arrows, and in the report we use, I think, blue arrows sideways for when there wasn't really a change this year. It's like a minus sign here or a flat, you'll see in a second. Updated pedestrian infrastructure improvements. So that's where there was already something there, but it's been fixed or improved. And in this case, this was almost a mile of this was from the curb ramp project. There were also some other places. We had a few landlords do some improvements. A contractor for Columbia Gas did a bunch of sidewalk improvements after they tore them up when doing improving gas lines, replacing gas lines. But about a mile total altogether this year, which is 2.5% replacement rate over about 40 miles of sidewalk in the city. So it's a 40-year replacement rate, which for life of sidewalk is not too bad. So if we could keep this pace up, we'd be on a good schedule to have sidewalks replaced every 40 years, which is nice. I'll say last year, it was even a little higher. It was a 33-year replacement rate. There was 3%, I think it was last year. So there's been a lot of really good work the city's been accomplishing here, and it's good to see that. New bike lanes, shared use paths. Notice the Stimson Bridge path gets mentioned here again because it's bicycle infrastructure. The one thing to note here, and I'll maybe talk more about it at the end, is there was a bike lane on Mill Street that was removed as part of the repaving this year. I don't know how many on council had noticed that missing. Just a couple, not one. That's interesting. So you might not get over there very much because it's sort of the student neighborhood, right? I'm there most every day on a bike, and I think a couple of the task force members are over there regularly too. And it's disappointing to see that, but there's some reasons for it we'll talk more about. The non-motorized transportation plan from 2010, we're tracking how many of the improvements in that plan have been accomplished. and it's 15, almost 16 years ago now that it was created, and the city's made pretty good progress on about half of those. One new one this year that was accomplished was the Stimson Bridge shared use path. That checked a box on that plan, so that's nice to see. There are 3 more improvements that are scheduled for next year, and off the top of my head, I probably can't tell you what they are. But at any rate, there's 3 more that are planned. One is the Columbus Road shared use path. Its construction's about to start this spring. That will be checking another box from this plan from 15, 16 years ago. And then I mentioned again here, the Mill Street bike lane was removed. That's why there's a red arrow here. Here's where there was essentially no change, is the gray bar. Signalized pedestrian crossings, nothing really, no big projects, nothing really added new signalization, and so there was no changes here. But we have 31 intersections with pedestrian signals, with 70 crosswalks that had pedestrian signals on them. Bus stops with sidewalk connections. So there was, in 2024, there was a bus stop audit that was done by Athens Public Transit folks. Actually, Ben Ziff, former council member, led that effort. And then there was another effort this year that Ben coordinated with an intern who's a council or a task force member to do a better analysis of the bus stops. And so the number here, I say 60%, is unchanged. It was 80% in the report last year. The reason the numbers are different is because this year it looks specifically at, this number is specifically about where the bus stop is on a street. 64% of those have a connection to the street. That could probably improve, but it hasn't really changed in recent years. So seeing some improvement to our bus stops is a good thing. I think an important metric to keep here. Curbs and intersections with tactile grids. This is really getting at an accessibility issue, right? So it's, I think, a good metric for accessibility. Tons of improvement here with the curb ramp project. So 75% of curb ramps now in the city have tactile grids on them. That's a big improvement. It was 60% previously. Big step in the right direction. Definitely good to see that work done. Benches, meaning benches for people to sit on along pedestrian corridors, which don't have to be along streets in this case. And in fact, all 4 of these installed where Parks Department installed them. I think 1 are on the west side and 3 on the east side or something like that. 1 might have been a memorial bench. Street trees, there were 15 planted this year along city streets, which is more than last year. I think there were 4 last year. Arbor Day committee worked with the city and did a lot of good work. And a couple of these were replaced at near a bus stop too, which is another nice metric. Sections of city sidewalks with steps, no change on this. Last year there were 2 that were sort of eliminated or at least bypassed and made accessible because there was a new shared use path on Union Street. So this year there's still 11 sections of steps on sidewalks in the city, which would be good eventually to get rid of all those, right? It'll take some effort and some good engineering probably in many cases too. So this last slide is where I sort of summarize some of the concerns we have this year. A couple of these have been mentioned. The one to mention here is removal of West State Street on-street parking. So this was during the Herald Street and Union Street projects. The city removed parking so that it was just a little less of an issue for traffic cutting through there to avoid the construction at Union Street. And it was supposed to be temporary. We did, task force last year, about this time last year, wrote a letter to the administration asking for the parking to be put back since it was supposed to be temporary, and Andy Stone, Director Stone, confirmed that. And he confirmed that they plan to put it back in place, but it has never happened. So why is this a concern? We've heard a bunch of complaints. In fact, my first experience riding on the street on my bicycle, it was the first time I ever felt unsafe on the street. And this was just after the parking was removed. So traffic speeds have increased. And there's a letter that maybe I should forward to City Council. I don't know if I provided it to Council, probably not. That looked at data from Streetlight, which is a company. We have ODOT has a license for local municipalities and organizations to mine this data. It's cell phone data that's aggregated, and you can see traffic speeds, traffic volumes, all these kind of details about your city streets, which is pretty cool data. And I could show before and after that there was like a 5-mile-an-hour increase in the average speed on the road. So significant issues for people walking and biking on that road. And we're talking about a major connection between the neighborhood and West State Street Park and the bikeway. So removal of the Mill Street bike lane. The reason it was removed is because technically it's supposed to be 5 feet wide, according to engineering manuals. And it was about 4 feet or maybe 3.5 feet was what they had left. And even though it was installed 14 years ago, it wasn't really up to standards. And reapplying that, they didn't feel like that was something they should do. Let me say that the Federal Highway Administration says that if you apply bike lanes to a road, studies have shown, on average, a 22% reduction in crashes for people biking, walking, and cars. So just crashes total reduces by 22%. So even if there's never a cyclist on the road, it still makes the road safer for people. If you were to instead, if you couldn't put a bike lane there, stripe a shoulder that's 2 or 3 feet wide, which is exactly what could have happened here, that shows a 15 to 17% reduction in crash rates. Yet, unfortunately, Andy Stone, the city administration, decided that, or didn't even think of those options, I think is maybe the problem, and they didn't consult with us. Would like to see that in the future before they make a decision like this. The problem is the striping went in, slid over a couple feet so that there's no way to put the bike lane back in without tearing out the striping down in the middle of the road and completely redoing it, which is a big expense that is just too expensive to try and to do at this point. So no real solution to fix this, but it's certainly, the road is not safer now than it was, and it's a lot of students there, and there are a fair number of crashes on Mill Street that have involved pedestrians and bicyclists over the years. Crash rates reported to ODOT by the city police department. I've talked to the police chief a little bit about this, and we have yet to really figure out what's going on, but about half of the bicycle and pedestrian crashes that are happening in the city are not being reported and not showing up in the ODOT database. We still don't know exactly why. We don't know what's happening. So less than half in the last 6 years are actually being reported to ODOT. So when a contractor working for the city on a new big project is looking at data, they go to that database and they look for crash rates and they try and figure out what safety measures should be applied. Studies ODOT does and also statistics they use to justify projects use that data. And the data, half of it's missing. That's just crazy. I don't know if it's just bike ped data or if it's all crash data. I don't know what's going on there, but there's certainly a significant issue that needs to be worked on, and I'd like to focus on it this year, I hope. And then Complete Streets policy was passed in City Council in 2020. So far, when it comes to repaving projects, which is sort of the low-hanging fruit for Complete Streets, when the road's being repaved, it's really easy to restripe it differently. And you have to pay for the paint anyway, so it doesn't cost anything to do that. You could easily add a bike lane or a shoulder or stripe bump outs. There's lots of things you can do that could make the road safer at really no cost if you do that. So far, the administration has yet to do that at all with any repaving project. In fact, unfortunately, the repaving projects have taken away the bike lane, and also 3 crosswalks that were painted on Shannon are gone as a result of the repaving project too.
Can you give us a sense of how many more minutes, because we're over time on your presentation? We'll need to go to questions and answers.
That's fine. I think I had one more statement and I was done, so.
Okay, please.
Thank you.
Would you like to give that
Time
statement?
flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, absolutely, and we appreciate the detail. Was there anything you wanted to add to these concerns before we switch to question and answer?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Then Committee of the Whole, we would have an opportunity to address the task force with any questions or comments. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Member Clodfelder?
I really like the way that you and your fellow committee member there highlighted all the improvements to curbs. Have you heard from members of the Disability Commission or citizens who deal with disabilities, if that has helped them?
I don't think any specific examples, but the Disabilities Commission really appreciates the work and definitely has witnessed and seen that it's been a significant improvement, yes. So they have a subcommittee on accessibility and advocacy that also talks about some of these same kind of issues, and we've been talking about this there in that committee, as well as the full Disabilities Commission at times too. So it's definitely been coming up, and they definitely appreciate the big improvements that have been made, yes.
Thank you. I had a similar question, recognizing that there is some intentional overlap between the task force and the Commission on Disabilities, including having a task force member who's a Commission on Disabilities member. And I was hoping you could just comment on what might appear as redundancy or overlap in focuses with accessibility, but you're approaching this work in a different data-driven kind of way, and I'm just wondering if you have thoughts on improved collaboration, or if you think things are working well between those two bodies right now.
Well, I serve on the subcommittee. I've been attending the Disabilities Commission meetings as well recently. I hadn't attended them for a while, but I've been asked to sort of re-engage there, and they've been interested in having me there. So myself, also Stephanie Hunter, who's here in the room, she also serves on both committees, and then Michelle Hahn, who you mentioned, is our representative from the Disabilities Commission. She serves on both committees as well. So we have 3 individuals at least that have overlap, which is good. There's sort of different missions there. We do have accessibility in our name, and you can see our metrics. We're trying to pay attention to accessibility, but we are more focused on pedestrian specifically, and then also bicycling is something that the commission is not concerned about at all, right? So there's overlap for sure in some places, and we are working together. In fact, we're talking about doing a joint meeting maybe twice a year to meet with city administration to save them having to come to 2 different meetings, for example. And then it gives us an opportunity to cross-fertilize as well. So we're working on that for this year. So
Thank you
hope to
very
do
much.
that in June or July for the first time.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Other council members who might have questions or comments? Member Wood.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Lily. If I recall right, Rob, you yourself were involved in a bike accident not that long ago. I remember you telling us. So a couple of follow-up questions with this data. Is your own accident in this data?
Yes.
Did it migrate to ODOT? What classification was it? And were there things that became sort of more real after that experience, things that sort of stand out that you would have changed or do differently? Yeah, how does that inform your advocacy?
So my crash was not reported to ODOT, and it was on Mill Street, actually. My son also had a crash on campus, which wasn't reported to ODOT by OU either, interestingly. So there's definitely data gaps happening. The rest of your question,
Oh, I was just curious.
what can I get at?
With where it fell on the scale of was that classified as minor, major, and how has that changed?
Mine would have been like possible injury, I think. I didn't get in the ambulance to go to the hospital since my wife was able to quickly get there, and she took me instead. I did a CT scan and things like that. Injuries were recoverable, obviously, and took physical therapy. But there were definitely injuries, but I think it would have been reported, and I can't remember from the police report, as a possible injury is the category they would have used. So if you look at the report, you can see some details about that, and it lists those kind of categories. It would have been the second lowest one, essentially.
Member Clodfelder.
Member Wood's question brings another one to my mind. Do you mind if I ask how you hope to find out about more of the bike crashes? Where are you going to get access to the people who've had crashes?
Well, the police chief is interested in the issue, and he even brought in the captain and the records analyst administrator, records administrator, I think it may be her title, to talk about it a little bit. But we need to sit down and go through, okay, here's the reports, here's the ones that you gave me that came from an inquiry in my request, but that weren't in the database at ODOT. Okay, figure out why these, did they get submitted to ODOT? Did they get rejected by ODOT? What happened? We just don't know yet, because it's detailed work to go one by one through them and try and figure out what happened. There's about 30 reports, 35 crashes that didn't get reported over the last 6 years. And so probably starting with the newer ones, the more recent ones make sense. But that's some work we have to figure out how to accomplish. And that's one reason it hasn't been done. I've known about this as an issue potentially for several years now, and been compiling the data. But it's something that's going to take some work to figure out what's going on.
Before we move to the administration and then the public for comment, I would just like to thank the commission for your task force for the extremely detailed work looking across metrics from the variety of plans our city has. I know that that's a longitudinal task and it can be challenging, so we appreciate you thinking of complete streets and our comprehensive plan, and we hope that you'll stay engaged in letting us know kind of how we're doing from year to year. For the administration, does the mayor have comment or question?
I do not.
Members of the public? Not seeing any questions, we will thank the task force for their time, and we'll continue with the council meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Planning and Development Committee. We will have that chaired by Member Alan Swink and joined by Megan Almeida, Paul Isherwood, and Jessica Thomas. All other council members may leave the dais. And Member Swink, you have the floor.
All right. Planning development tonight, three items, not an extensive agenda. The first item concerns a Title 49 request to allow installation of an elevator vestibule that extends 6.2 feet into the city's right-of-way at 32 West Carpenter. This is the Mount Zion Black Cultural Center. Megan, here's one for you. And Mike, if you could pass, there's one for you, and pass one down to Jessica and Paul. As you're looking at this diagram, you're basically, if you were to drop down into it, you're standing in the middle of Carpenter Street between Mount Zion and Brony's across the street. You see the building, just to the left of the building is, that would be North Congress Street. When the original designs were done for this elevator, which is required because the restrooms are in the basement and access to other floors, this is a building that's well over 100 years old, and we're trying to bring it up to speed so that anyone and everyone can come to it. There was an elevator shaft put in, and if you look very closely, near the upper left-hand corner, you can see what looks like an elevator shaft. Not that little square to the left that's dark black, but the elevator shaft. And the original plan was where you see that opening would be the elevator door. So someone walking down the sidewalk could get to that elevator door, push the button, go up or down. When the elevator people came out and really started taking a look at this, they realized several things. That is the northwest corner of the building. Weather in Athens comes from the west. And with the elevator there exposed to the elements, every 6 to 9 months they'd be shutting this thing down. Just the moisture and the sun and the so on and so forth. The gentleman who came out said, this just isn't going to work. We're going to be out here trying to fix this thing more than we are going to keep it open. Now, some people may say, oh, wait a minute, you have elevators in the parking garage. They're out in the open. Well, they're under roof and they're somewhat protected. So to protect that door to the elevator, to make it functional 365 days a year, it was decided that a vestibule, a protected vestibule with a door would need to be constructed. And the size of that vestibule is 6'2" by 6'10", the proposed vestibule, I should say. And the reason it's that size is when you start talking about ADA laws and wheelchairs, there needs to be a what they call a spinning area, and it needs to be approximately the size of what you have there. In other words, this vestibule has been designed to accommodate ADA requirements, but not to be 12 by 12. In adding that vestibule, this is where we get into the part where this comes before City Council. That vestibule, the proposed vestibule, would extend 6 feet 2 inches into the city right-of-way. So 6 feet 2 inches from the edge of the vestibule to the cutout, because we've approved this either last year or the year before, where people can drive around the corner, go into that little cutout, drop passengers off without obstructing traffic on Congress Street. From the edge of the vestibule to the edge of the cutout is 4 feet 1 inch, 49 inches. ADA requirement for a sidewalk for a wheelchair to be able to pass is 3 feet. So we're good there in terms of being able to pass. And again, the restricted area of 3 feet is only 6 feet 10 inches long. This is a little unusual. We have had other requests come before City Council for use of the city right-of-way, but we've never had one extend this far into it, and we've never had one extend this far into it at ground level. We've had extensions up above, awnings and things of that nature. You remember, for those of you who've been around a while, the old greenery used to have those steel beams that came way out. There was actually, when Joel Scheckman and Terry Anderson took over and turned it into the Blue Gator, you could actually sit up there. It was like a little porch enclosed. They extend way out. But again, it was not at ground level, did not impede traffic. It was 10, 12 feet up in the air. So that is the request. To extend into the city right-of-way 6.2 feet, or 6 feet 2 inches, 6 feet 2 inches. The passageway would be 4.1 inches. So that's the background on it, a little longer than normal, but wanted to paint the picture of what was being asked. So our normal course of action would be to consult first with the administration, the mayor, open it up to the public, and then come back to this body for discussion. So with that, Mr. Mayor, extend that for your comment or additions or deletions.
Just an open comment. You know, I certainly appreciate the need for protecting the elevator on this particular project. My only concern is this would set precedents for being able to build that far out into the public right-of-way. And therefore, I think council needs to be cognizant of that. It could look like anything in the future on Court Street or elsewhere in the uptown area or in the city of Athens, period. So that's my one thought on this. This is a great project, of course. I'm 100% behind the Mount Zion Black Cultural Center and the rebirth of Mount Zion Church, but this could certainly have second-order effects depending on how this plays out.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind, do you have any thoughts based on maybe your experiences with other cities through the National League of Cities when it comes to these kind of right-of-way uses, that this large setting precedent? Have you seen that end up causing trouble for other cities?
I have not. As a matter of fact, this is the first time in my tenure that this topic has come up. Other than, as Councilmember Swank indicated, I was on council when we were discussing what to do with the 11-foot I-beams after the greenery was being rehabbed into apartments, and having that conversation. But again, that's aerial. We're talking, 10 feet above ground. It wasn't impeding pedestrian passageway or building into the city's right-of-way. This is different when it's at grade.
Thank you.
Members of the public.
Hello all, I'm Stephanie Hunter, 204 Elmwood Place. I have a quick question because I'm trying to follow along where there's some sort of pullover place and exactly where we are on Mount Zion here. Because I want to know exactly where we're talking about. Is this the west side or the north side?
Be the west side.
West side, okay. So we're talking where there's currently like a bush on Google Maps?
Do you want to see the map?
Well, there's nothing
I'd
there.
love to see
Yeah,
that.
there's nothing there now. It's all been torn up and under construction.
That's,
Yeah.
it's there's the cutaway, there's the elevator shaft, that's the best.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, we have a digital copy.
All right, so it's stuff that isn't even pictured anymore. I suppose my only comment would be that on, what is it called? Simpson Avenue, they found good ways to make the driveways be relatively flat, and then had most of the ramp be at almost the curb area, therefore allowing a 5-foot wide sidewalk. And I don't see why that couldn't be done here if there is an ADA concern.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public?
Yeah, Rob Delich, 124 Morris Avenue here in the city. Just sort of similar, following on to Stephanie's concern. This looks like it pinches the sidewalk pretty good based on the drawing. Certainly reroutes around it. I don't think that's as much of an issue. I think making sure that the sidewalk is of minimum adequate width is pretty important here. And so I can't tell exactly from the diagram how wide it is, but there is plenty of road width maybe it could be worked with, but this is a bit of an encroachment. But again, this is a wonderful project, and I think we should try and work with them to make this work. I just don't know if this is a perfect proposal or not. So it'd be good to look at this closely and try and make sure we know exactly what we're getting into, how much it's going to impede the sidewalk, and if it impedes accessibility. Obviously, it improves accessibility in the building, but does it impede accessibility getting around the building at this location? It could. It's hard to tell from the drawing. So I just want to make sure council considers those kind of things, and maybe we'll help advise if we can get a better look at the details here.
Hey, thank you. Okay.
I'm so sorry. Can
You've already gone one time.
Cool, email me.
Thank you. Anybody else from the members of the public? Okay.
Oh, one more.
Oh, sorry. No, he's leaving. Oh. Gotcha. Okay. All right, Member Thomas, saw your hand first.
Do you happen to recall from when we did the bump out or the drop off? Do they have an idea yet of the angle of that, or do you think is it supposed to be similar to College Street at the Methodist Church, where it's fairly sidewalk level and adjacent?
Yes.
Okay. So that would really kind of extend the sidewalk then over to that too.
Yeah, from the vestibule to that point, which I would consider the street, is 4.1 feet.
Okay.
So it's more than enough for the ADA 3-foot requirement for and again, the distance from where the sidewalk would be impeded on one side to where it opens up on the other is 6 feet 10 inches. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm assuming, since we have all of this, that the elevator shaft is already there.
Yes, yeah, so you see where the vestibule is? If you're moving toward the building, that's where the elevator shaft is. And I went up there last week and looked at it and also talked to the contact from the engineering firm, Jennifer McAdam, and walked through this very, very, very clearly, step by step by step, what ifs. One of the what ifs I proposed was moving the cutoff south, which would keep that much wider there, even though it still would be 6 feet 2 inches out. Problem with moving it south, coming around that corner from Carpenter to Boom, it was just considered a traffic safety issue. This gives you a little more time to get around and then work your way in. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
Floor is yours.
Yeah, I think where it is makes sense because that's going to be
Close to the elevator.
Yeah, close to the elevator. It's not going to have another curb. And with that bump out there, it's not a bump out. It's going to be like a flattened drop-off area. There won't be a curb, whereas if it was regular sidewalk, there'd be a curb. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I'm just thinking of our presentation earlier. One of the things to highlight where the presence of crosswalks and the art project that was there. Could we ask to see that very short area, that 49 inches is, I don't know if there's code related to that would be, a bright color, so that if you're a pedestrian or a bicyclist or something along that area, you're very aware that it's narrowing, and so that you're much more aware that you're also close to potentially there's cars pulling in to let people out, so that if you are walking or biking there, that you take caution with that you're, I think something like that can be done to make this safe. And I assume, my question is yours, the elevator shaft is already there, so this is trying to fix a problem that it's not a case of, well, we could move the elevator.
Right. Yeah, when people think of elevators, most people think elevator inside a building. This isn't even a consideration. But an elevator exposed to a west-facing winds and rain and so on and so forth. Not to mention, and I hate to say this, an elevator exposed to the public in the night and lots of traffic. Who knows what's gonna happen? Megan, anything to share with us? Your thoughts on this?
Not anything. Everybody's hit on a lot of my thoughts, so no, nothing new to mention right now.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
How critical, and again, I'm new to this project, so, I think this previously came up to council, how critical is the cutaway? So is there a scenario where you might have to sacrifice part of the cutaway in order to make sure that the vestibule is in a safer location? Is that something that for this project would be, I understand the value of the cutaway because, as we said, we're right next to the elevator, particularly from an accessibility standpoint. You don't want to have to park, further down Congress Street to be able to get access to the elevator shaft. But is that something that they've considered?
Well, Paul, that's a really good point, but let's forget the cutaway altogether, and let's say it's a perfectly straight line. The issue before us today is whether or not to grant the right-of-way use of 6 feet 2 inches. And the mayor made the point about precedent. I go both ways on precedent. I tend to look at things on an individual basis. I have 2 children. I have 5 grandchildren, and I've heard, well, you let so-and-so do it. Well, I paint a picture that was a different set of circumstances. Personally, I'm comfortable taking the heat for precedent. However, even though we might grant this, the entity that catches the criticism is not us, but it's the administration. You let so-and-so do it, because generally the general public can't distinguish one from the other. So my only concern about this is the issue that the mayor raised, but personally, being a former history teacher, I'm factoring in the value of the institution, and in this particular case, I kind of lean on that, knowing full well we may get somebody saying, you know what, I don't want 6 feet 2 inches, I only want 5'8", but give it to me because you gave them 6'2". So I throw that out for your consideration. Any other comments about, and I'm not cutting this off by any means, but I guess the question at this point in time, if there are no other comments, do we have a motion to move this on to council for further discussion where all 7 members can weigh in?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Call for a vote then. All in favor of moving this forward? And again, let me say this before we do this. Just because council and committee votes to move something forward is no indication of anyone or any group's individual support of that. This just moves it through the legislative process where all 7 members of council can then consider it and weigh in. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Okay, we will advance this for consideration at the next regular session of council, which is next Monday. Second item on the agenda is really very simple, and if you'll indulge me, I'm just going to read very briefly what we're talking about here. This is an ordinance accepting the petition for annexation of approximately 1.175 acres owned by White Athens Property LLC on Theater Lane. I'm going to read 4 whereases just to give us an idea of what we're doing. Whereas a petition for annexation of approximately 1.175 acres was filed by White Athens Property LLC, and whereas the Board of Commissioners of Athens County has released said acreage for annexation of the City of Athens, and whereas 60 days from the date of filing have now lapsed in accordance with Section 709.04 of the Ohio Revised Code, and whereas per Ordinance 10225, the city has agreed to provide all municipal services, so on and so forth, to this area. This is what we have to go through to annex something. It involves the city, it involves city council, involves the county commissioner. We're now to the point of accepting the petition for annexation. Mr. Mayor, anything you would like to add to that?
Nothing other than I certainly support the annexation of this.
Members of the public. Members of the committee. Could I hear a motion to advance this to next Monday's city council regular session of council?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, we have 2 items on next week's agenda. All right, item number 3 on our agenda, the last item of planning development, the liquor permit. We have a request, or not a request, the folks that own 14 Station Street, the old Uncorked, have applied for a D3A permit, which would allow the sale of beer and wine and liquor till 2:30 in the morning. Right now, their D1 and D2 allows them to do it till 2 a.m. Liquor permit matters by our assignment of topics for council comes before planning and development. And what we're talking about today is whether or not we feel that we need to call for a public hearing on this from the Bureau of Liquor Control. So that's the background. Mr. Mayor, anything to add to that?
No, I'm not adding anything to it other than, it's so interesting when you look at the Department of Commerce, Liquor Control, and the I don't want to call them quotas, the number of permissible permits, D1s, 2s, 3s, D5s, which is, serving wine, beer, and spirits, and also being able to purchase and for off-premises use. I can say that oftentimes there are availability of D1s, 2s, and 3s that are out there where they haven't all been purchased. D5s are always a premium and they're rare to come by. I know we're not talking about that, but for a D3A, I personally don't have an issue with it. I will share with council that I have been through one hearing here in Athens in council chambers with the Chipotle request for a liquor permit, and at the time council decided to challenge it, and it's the Ohio Department of Commerce Liquor Control, and it didn't go in the favor of those who wanted the hearing, and it ended up being a reality and at the end of the day with that liquor permit. So just giving you some historical context of my lived experience of kind of going through this process. I was mayor at the time, not a council member, but this.
Thank you.
It's Department of Commerce.
Yeah. Members of the public.
124 Morris Avenue. I think we already talked about a permit, one of the D1, D2, D3 permits that moved from somewhere else to this location a few months ago, I think, right? Does anybody remember what that was?
Yeah, they had, we had 2 things going at the same time. We had a Trex permit for Siam Thai.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, Siam Thai. And the original permit for this was D1, D2. They had since obtained a D3. Now they're asking for a D3A, which would allow them to serve beverage alcohol until 2:30 in the morning.
So the D1, D2 did that come from another location in town?
No, it was a transfer right there, Uncorked.
Oh, it was right
Yeah.
from Uncorked.
Yes, sir.
But I thought there was something like from Seoul or some other place that they moved another permit from. Was that the D3?
That they had applied for and received a D3,
Oh, okay.
and now they're applying for a D3A.
Okay, wow. All right, thanks.
Okay.
I think the other transfer was from Village Bakery to,
Yeah, Village Bakery to the bicycle shop was another one. We had three going at the same time. Anybody else from the community? Members of the committee? Thoughts on, do we need a hearing? Do we not need a hearing, one way or the other?
I don't think we need a hearing, but I just looked up, we transferred this from Boozy Bubbles on 18 South Court down. Yeah, we did, it was in October. I was thinking the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think we need a hearing.
Is Boozy Bubbles 14, South Court?
18?
18, okay, and this goes to 14.
so their current license allows them to stay up until 2,
Till 1 o'clock.
till 1 o'clock, and
Yeah.
this would be till 2:30.
This to be 2:30, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we'll go very far with hearing if we tried.
Yeah.
It seems. I
Megan,
think-
this
yeah.
is in Ward 1. We obviously probably need to hear your thoughts on this. This is in your ward.
Sure. I mean, I guess I don't really understand. This is maybe where I'm new. The value in, other than maybe keeping a business open makes more money from 1 o'clock. They would be open till, but they want to push it to 2:30.
2:30, yes, ma'am.
I mean, I walk that area a lot, and I'm kind of wondering how the neighbors with all the folks that live over there, how they would feel about more activity, because it really is quieter over there. I was just thinking along the lines of that. I don't know if that matters for this, but that's where my mind went.
Well, I went down there today, and I ended up talking with the owner who lives in Columbus, and that was one of my issues. From the front door of this place to the Station Street Apartments is basically a Joe Burrow long touchdown pass. It's close. And I don't know how I say this. Those apartments have been there forever. And to get to that place, because it is carry out too, and after Siemens closes, that'll probably be the only place on that side of town where you could drive in and pick up stuff and carry it out.
Yeah.
The only and Jessica, I agree with you 100%. The only reason I could think of a hearing would be to give the opportunity for those in the residential area to express any comments or concerns. This is a little different than a bar on Court Street, which is in a bar zone. This literally faces, what do you call it? Housing. So if I remember right, we don't have to do anything until March the 12th. Megan, this is your ward. Your thoughts on maybe talking to some of your constituents and their thoughts and whether or not we need to have a hearing or not.
Okay.
Because we don't have to take a vote one way or another tonight to advance this. So Mayor was first, then Paul, then Jessica. It was boom, boom, boom.
I really appreciate the conversation about the housing that's right across on Station Street, right there. But again, for a little historical context, some of you remember that that site housed the Oak Room for a long time, and then it became Athens Uncorked. So this isn't anything new, other than to the students who live in the condominiums or housing across the street. But because likely they weren't there when it was the Oak Room back in the day.
Yeah, that's interesting. And one of the reasons I visited and I asked the folks, do you serve food? They serve no food. This is strictly a bar.
I think it'll change, though. I think they're going to work towards eventually serving food.
The person I talked to, but again, that could be changing. So I saw Paul's hand, then I saw Jessica's hand.
So just a quick, two things. One, do we go through the 3 readings on this, or is it just one vote?
Just one vote on a hearing, yeah.
So, I mean, if this goes to full committee, there is an opportunity for, outside of a hearing, for people from those, we don't necessarily have to have a hearing. People from the apartments could come to council and voice their concerns to members of council that way.
You know, without Debbie here and without Lisa here, couldn't give you a definitive answer on process. Normally, this comes as the communication.
Flying blind.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the other question, I mean, I was, as I looked at this, I was much more leaning towards a likelihood of a hearing, that there was no necessarily any specific issue with doing that. But I thought that they closed much earlier than they did. And if this is not that much later, and as the mayor points out, that this has long been a establishment that has served alcohol late into the evening, into the night, will it fundamentally change what's happening there? I'm not sure that a public hearing for that. But I would certainly, as we don't have to do anything till March 12th, if we get feedback between now and then from people in those residents around that area that there are strong concerns about this, there is an opportunity for us. Can we at that point then say we feel we need a hearing?
What we would have to do is, Megan, if you're going to get some feedback from the neighborhood, have that for us next week, because next week is a business meeting of council. And at the business meeting of council, we'd have to say whether we wanted a hearing or not. The following week is the 9th, which is a committee night. And I think you two won't be here. So we can't meet. So we need it by next week.
Okay.
How quickly is it? I'm just trying to wrap my brain around, like, reaching out. I'm not certain I can reach out in less than a week to the folks over. Are you saying just strictly the apartments and the condominiums that are over there to do outreach to, Alan? Or
That's where I would start. Yeah. I mean, those would be the people most affected, because you're on the back side of that building, nothing on Union Street. I mean, you have that, you have the old station, you have the field. Yeah. But it's your ward, I'm certainly not going to.
Yeah, I'm just thinking there's a lot of students over there, and it's a lot of absentness, I think, during the day. And I don't know how it would look going at night.
Okay, yeah.
Trying to interact with people.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just a friendly suggestion. Tremblay Enterprise is, I think, still the owner of those apartments across the street. Their office, their Athens office, is in the train depot itself, and maybe go in and meeting with the current manager and ask the question, can you push something out to your tenants? And then see if they can get a response back.
Yeah, that would be quick and easy.
It would be so much more efficient rather than.
Sure, like going door to door.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Yeah, no.
Sit outside with a
I would
table.
go through the office manager over at the rental.
That's great.
Do you know of any direct contact right now, or maybe we can talk later?
I can get that for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jessica.
I had the same thought as the mayor did, that was the issue for so long. Not that I don't think any of the kids here now would remember that.
I remember that.
Are they a carryout also, or is it only
This would be
drinking in?
Yeah, this would be for carry out too.
Carry out
Yeah,
also? Okay.
yeah.
I'm fine with, waiting until next week, and if people want a hearing, I'm never opposed to people coming in to be able to speak. I think Lisa will probably tell us we have to have a legal reason. I think she said that last time, but either way, if we decide next week, and if more people maybe hear it now and want to come in next week too, that's another opportunity.
Okay. So we'll look forward to some feedback next week and communications, and go from there. All right, Paul, that concludes planning and development. You're up.
So we now have City and Safety Services, chaired by Paul Isherwood, joined by Megan Almeida, Alan Swink, and Michael Wood.
Well, I give Michael a chance to get up here. So, City and Safety Services Committee, we have a quick change to the agenda. The second item on the agenda, the City Police Department and County Sheriff's Office Memorandum of Understanding is not being considered this evening, and so that's moving off the agenda. And so I will start with the top of the agenda, which is the water service outside the corporate limits, Rock Riffle. This is an item, comes as a result, a property owner outside the corporation asking for water service. And this is not an uncommon request, and that when outside the corporation, if a property owner at his own expense has laid down and extended mains and water pipes, that's from the Ohio Revised Code, And if the legislative authority approves, the municipality may provide the water. This is a property on Rock Riffle. I don't have the address here.
8860.
8860 Rock Riffle. And there's not really a lot more to it than that, other than the city is happy to extend this to. First, Mr. Mayor, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No.
No? Members of the public? Oh, okay. Members of the committee? Mr. Swank, Member Swank.
When Paul sent this stuff to us on Thursday, there was a letter from the applicant, and the applicant cited 2 properties, one on either side, that currently have this. So I called the building utilities office, and in reality, only one had it. But I also found out that there are 3 other properties up there. So there are a total of 4 properties on Rock Riffle Road where we're already doing this. So this makes perfect sense.
Yes, and just for complete transparency, my understanding is that the owner, Mr. Funk, has discussed the possibility of those other properties perhaps seeking access to city water at some point in the future, but that is an undertaking that my understanding from Director Stone would possibly be talking about a conversation about annexation, but this connection would not require that.
Could I ask a question of the mayor?
Please do.
I would assume these folks are probably on LEAX water right now.
Possibly.
Okay, if they are there some payment things we have to do? So I remember we had something last year where it was a sizable amount of money, which we'd eventually recoup when we would have these as permanent customers, but there was an initial cost for doing this.
There is, there has been. There certainly was for 68256 annexation with the Woda Cooper project, to where we had to create an agreement between the City of Athens and LEAX. Now, it was interesting because there currently were no customers in the 68256 annexation for Woda Cooper, so therefore LEAX was not supplying any water to anyone, although it was in their region, within their territory, quote unquote. So we did strike an agreement with them. I'd have to double check to see if this would be similar to that. I don't have an answer for you.
Just from the context of Mr. Funk's letter, he's done obviously some exploration about what his water options would be, and he says, I quote, "The next closest water provider is LEAX, another quarter mile up Rock Riffle," which again, I mean, it's not definitive, but it suggests that he's not currently connected to LEAX.
So if you weren't LEAX and you weren't the city, would you a well?
Councilman Swank, I do not know.
So I'll tell you what, I have the 4 addresses at home. I inadvertently left them. I will email you those 4 addresses, and perhaps you can take, so that way you don't have to chase them down.
I'll have you an answer by tomorrow morning.
Okay, great, thank you.
You said the address is 8860.
Yeah.
It's, I mean,
Or maybe 86, I'm just 4 numbers off the top of my head. It could be 8680.
8666 Rock Riffle Road. For clarification.
Okay.
8,666. Any other members of committee? Any questions?
is this related to the? Is this related to the development housing project that David's trying to?
No,
get done
that's
with
out west of town.
That's the other side, right? Yeah. It's a weird spot.
That's a backup wall, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I get a motion to move this to full council next week?
So move.
A second?
Second.
Can I call for a vote? All those in favor of moving this to full council next week, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Okay, the next item on the agenda is easement and vacation, University Estates Water Tower, ingress and egress. So this is a water tower owned by the city up at University Estates. Currently, we have an easement that allows us to access that, and the city wants to vacate that easement and use a new easement path to the water tower. And this agreement would simply be the city council approving the agreement that has already been struck between the owner of the land and Mr. Garrett Carr and the city. And I got an update from Director Stone this morning. So when this was first plotted around 20 years ago, the city had an easement granted as part of that plot for the water tower. However, where the original developer built the driveway was not in that easement. Now that the property around the tower is potentially going to have homes built, this action will vacate the original easement that the previous owner granted to the city. So this is essentially just updating the easement and giving better access to this. So with that being said, any input on this?
Well said. No.
Members of the public? Members of the committee? Okay.
Move to advance.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of moving this to full council next week indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. That is, ayes have it. The last item on our agenda is back to water softening salt. But this is a different water softening salt. Last year, there was an overspend of last year's softening salt budget of $26,783.71. And so this is a request for to amend last year's authorizations for essentially for auditing purposes. Mr. Mayor, anyone want to add?
As you said, it's for auditing purposes. Yep.
Members of the public? Members of the committee? Okay. Can I get a motion to move this to full committee next week?
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of moving this to full committee, full council next week, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And the ayes have it. And that concludes City and Safety Services.
Thank you, Chair Sherwood. We will now move on to Finance and Personnel Committee, and that's chaired by Councilmember Jessica Thomas and joined by Beth Clodfelder, John Stazer, and Michael Wood.
Hello. All right, we've got 3 items on our agenda tonight. The first 2 are going to take just a little bit of explaining and background, and then the last one's just another then and now. The first item is creating a property assessed clean energy fund. The current situation on this is that this is called this is for some income that will be coming in from the county, being collected by the county. PACE funding. This is when I guess several years ago, 3 years ago, the Lostro building had the opportunity to create a environmental special improvement district in Athens. We went through all the approval process of that to allow them to do that, to get their board and everything. By letting them do that, what that means is that they had an opportunity to secure third-party funding to finance qualifying projects within their building that would increase energy efficiency and renewable energy. So they did that. And the way that the PACE funding works is you get your third-party financier, however you work that out. You figure out your terms of mortgage, basically, or however many years that goes through. And then they put a special assessment on their own property taxes. So they will pay those annually to the county who collects the money. They pass it then on to the city, and then we pay the financer for that property. So what we are doing here is we need to create a separate fund and a separate account for this that is a custodial fund, which just means that we're going to take the money in from the county for the Lostro building company, and then we are going to pay it directly out to the company, which is the SPH Athens LLC, also known as Peachtree Group. This is basically a pass-through account that just moves this money from their collection of their special assessment to their financer. It's just a pretty it's a state process. It's just something we have to do this way for the state. I think some of the clarifications on this, and I can answer any questions once we get through just a little bit of the background, is just as a reminder that, when we went through the ECID, there was a lot of miscommunication, misinformation. This does not affect property taxes at all. This is not a property tax that the county is giving up, and this is nothing that the city is giving up. If you go to the auditor's page, you can see the taxes on a property. You can see all the taxes, where the breakdown of the taxes are. If you go below that, you'll see special assessments, and this is where they have chosen to have the money fronted for their project and pay it back as a loan over however many years they've set up. And you'll see that amount down there. They're figuring out the exact amount right now. But that's the money that we will be putting into this fund and then paying right back out. So after saying all of that, this will, if we can get this forward to regular session next week, it will need a suspension, as it takes 30 days, hopefully faster, for the state to approve this fund, and the money from the county could be coming in sometime in the next month, depending on how their taxes are going and everything. I think that's really everything on that. I just want to open this up then to questions and comments from the administration and the public, and then any committee questions. Anything from the mayor?
I think you summed it up well. I mean, again, this is just creating an account with the city as a pass-through to where they are able to take advantage of this process. If I'm not mistaken, some of the energy efficiency improvements in a very, very old building were a energy efficient HVAC system, and the improvements in their elevator in that building, which again opened up the opportunity for energy efficiencies with that. And there may be a couple other items that they took advantage of, but PACE financing it's nothing new. It's been around for a long, long time when it comes to improvements. In my time on the NOPEC board, NOPEC, Northeast or Northern Ohio Public Energy Council, of which Councilmember Swank is a board member, has a program, a PACE financing program, to do just this exact thing for businesses that want to take advantage of a way that they can lower their costs with building improvements.
Treasurer?
The only thing I want to throw in there, the auditor isn't here, but she definitely wanted me to just, remember Thomas already said this, but we want to reiterate, this is dollar for dollar. There are 0 city dollars that go out of this, right? It's just if they pay us $1,000, we turn around and write the check to somebody else for $1,000. 0 city dollars of our money goes into this. So I think the auditor wanted me to just specify that.
Members of the public? All right, members of the committee.
Is it possible that setting up this pass-through system for the Lostro building will make it easier if other local businesses also choose to pursue PACE funding and make their businesses more energy efficient?
Yes, yeah, and that's a good clarification, is with the ECID, now they're, once they're established and they have a board, anybody within the city can be a part of that, which is an environmental special improvement district. Yeah.
And similarly, could you remind me, please, how widely would this PACE area, if you will, extend in the city?
I have to look back at some of the ordinances. I think it's the city, it would just be city limits.
Okay, but it's not
and
just...
it's commercial only.
It's not just uptown?
No.
No commercial.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions? All right. Then we can move on to the next item. The next item is reinstatement of Athens City Code Title 15 taxes. The quick background on this is that in the fall, we repealed Title 15 because Title 17 came out. There was some miscommunication that Title 17 was a replacement for Title 15 because of the date change in it. And it's been noted by our income tax department that it was actually an in addition to, not a replacement. Just to clarify between the two, Title 15 deals with tax filers for anything prior to 2016. And Title 17 deals with tax filers post 2016 and current. There's some other differences. They basically did not combine 17 and 15 to make it one big bill. So it's two different codes. And Title 15 had some other provisions in it that were not incorporated into 17, which is why we need to keep them both, or needed to keep them both. The Income Tax Department was very kind to send some just examples of ways in which this why it needs to be kept or reinstated. And that's, if anyone has their returns amended, you can go back 10 years to amend your tax returns. There are people who may not have ever filed their taxes and should have been doing it prior to 2016. If you have any cases of fraud, tax evasion, or failure to file, you would need to be able to have this in place to have any enforcement of tax rolls and to be able to collect those taxes. And it's generally recommended that you keep Title 15 or any title on for 20 years. Any comments from elected officials? No. From the public? All right, members of the committee. All right. Member Clodfelder.
In terms of the nitty-gritty of reinstating this, is this just a matter of amending city code, or where is this change made?
We would have to reintroduce Title 15, and the law director and clerk are working on that.
Okay.
All right. So moving on, we have some then and nows that will be up next week. Just 3 this time, one for Rumpke Consolidated, just the monthly trash.
Member
fee.
Tom,
I'm sorry.
the treasurer.
Important clarification. Aren't we supposed to be voting on these?
Oh my gosh, yes. Thank you,
Yeah.
Member Stacer. I kind of just got on a roll and was surprised how quickly they were going. Can I have a motion to move the PACE funding creation
So
forward?
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And then can I have a motion to move the reinstate Athens City Code Title 15 forward?
So moved.
Yeah. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you for that catch. Once I get on a roll, I'm just going. So the then and nows next week will be for the monthly garbage fees, Go To It IT Group, which is just our IT service, and Axion Enterprise, which is the body cameras for the police. Any comments or questions from elected officials on that? Nope. Nope. Anything from the public? And committee? Member Clodfelder.
I'm just curious, the amount for Rumpke Consolidated Corporation, is that a monthly fee? That's a big number.
I think so. I forgot to clarify that with the deputy auditor today, but that is.
It is.
That was the best guess, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Go ahead.
The second one, the Go To IT Group or Go To It Group, how long does that payment cover? Is that annual? Is it monthly? The other two designate and that one doesn't.
That one I would have to look, but I can ask. I can check it and ask.
All right, thank you.
We've done so much in the last 3 months around here, and I think that's just if I'm thinking this correctly, that's just the bill for all the things we've done in the past months. We've upgraded, you all still have the emails, all the stuff that Lucas was working on. So with all those upgrades and stuff, I'm pretty sure that's just the bill for what we had done over that time
As
period.
opposed to an ongoing?
As opposed to an ongoing.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
All right, yeah, and I'll double check that, but
Yeah.
that sounds good. All right, well, any other questions? That ends finance and personnel.
You didn't vote that
You
for
got to
me.
vote on
I
that.
didn't vote that one for you, I'm sorry. Eventually, it's going to become a habit. Can I have a motion to move these forward?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll second it.
Yeah, second. Then
Could we?
Shenanigans out in the.
That's okay. If we could just repeat that vote one more time.
Can I have a motion to move this forward?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, now that concludes finance and personnel.
And with that, council is adjourned at 8:29.